If something in your relationship feels off, but you can't explain why. If you've spent years trying harder in the relationship and yet it just keeps hurting, this space is for you. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are living with covert narcissism in your marriage and you are starting to see changes in your children, maybe depression, slipping grades, anxiety, trauma bonding, the golden child and scapegoat dynamics, then this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about the moment it stops being just about you. The moment you realize that your children are organizing themselves around this other parent, and in fact, around that parent's volatility. Someone that should be safe to them, someone that should love and care for them, guide them, yes, with strength and compassion together, but that just isn't happening. I recently received a message from a mother, and she described having 3 teenagers. One is the golden child, one is the scapegoat, and one who stays away by disappearing into their phone or staying at a friend's house just to stay out of the danger zone. Now, her oldest child was top of the competitive private school, head of the, honor council, speaking multiple languages, a top-notch student, but suddenly was exhausted all the time and unable to shake this deep sense of sadness. Doctors ended up diagnosing this child as having situational depression. The middle child bears the brunt of the father's anger, is locked out, shoved, called awful names, but then the next day, like it does for so many of us, it just disappears as though nothing happened. The third child, the grades are slipping and they are pulling away more and more, disappearing into the phone or going to a friend's house and just isolating. The house runs on a clock, or more like a timer. Everyone scans to see how long they have to relax before he walks in the door. And again, that could be she just as easily. Does this sound familiar? I remember those precious about 2 hours between when the boys got home from school and when their father arrived home from work. These 2 hours were often playful and happy. There was wrestling in the living room, throwing a football inside or outside, begging me to play games with them, and we had a lot of crazy games that we played. These 2 hours were full of life, they were full of connection, until the garage door opened. That's when our family time came to an abrupt end. When children begin scanning the clock to know how much time they have left, to what? To laugh, play, be loud without worrying about it? How about even to just exist or breathe? This is not normal stress. When they won't invite their friends over because the energy in the house feels unpredictable and unsafe, this is not normal stress. When one child is elevated, one is targeted, and one disappears, again, this is not normal stress. It's a system organizing itself around one person's control and power. If you've ever felt that subtle shift in your house, the way the air tightens when the garage door opens, you know exactly what I mean. Conversations pause. Everyone busies themselves. Shoulders stiffen. Mouths clam up. Someone lowers the volume on the TV or turns it off entirely. Someone else braces. Everyone runs to their rooms. This is not overreacting. There's a reason that all of this is going on. Children do not develop situational depression in a vacuum. They adapt to their surroundings. Now, that is not to say every child who develops depression comes from an abusive or narcissistic household. No, depression is complex. There are biological factors, genetic predispositions, hormonal changes, developmental stages, grief, trauma from outside the home, academic pressure, social dynamics, and all of this matters. But when a child's mood shifts in the context of chronic tension, emotional unpredictability, relational instability inside their own home with their parent, it's worth paying attention to this. Children are exquisitely attuned to their environments. They read the tone, they track facial expressions, they anticipate reactions. They know what's going on long before we ever voice it, long before sometimes we ever see it. They know. They may not know how to put words to it. They may not even know it's not normal, but they know. And when their nervous systems are constantly scanning for safety, that kind of vigilance takes a toll on them. Sometimes what we label as situational depression, it's not weakness, it's not being fragile. It's a nervous system that's been working overtime for far too long and at a time in their life when it shouldn't be. But it's also just like yours, your nervous system that's been hypervigilant. The golden child learns to perform. They become attuned to what earns approval and what brings relief in the household. They read the room quickly and they adjust. They achieve, they excel, they overfunction. They become impressive, not necessarily because they are driven by joy or even desire, but because success stabilizes their environment. If they do well enough, behave well enough, accomplish enough, the tension at home eases, at least some, and at least for a while. They internalize the belief that love is conditional and safety is earned. Over time, they push and they push until their nervous system simply cannot carry it anymore. The pressure to be exceptional becomes heavy. Exhaustion might set in, sadness settles like a fog they cannot outrun, and beneath all the trophies, the leadership roles, and the straight A's, there's often a quiet fear. If I stop performing, everything will fall apart. So they just keep pushing themselves. The scapegoat absorbs the blame. They become hyper aware, defensive, and even angry, not because they are a difficult child, but because they are carrying a debilitating internal message. And that message is that they are the problem, that everything is their fault, that they are to blame. And they start to believe this. They certainly have been told it enough times, so they may act out, withdraw, or even explode. But underneath it is a child who has been told directly or indirectly that they are too much, too sensitive, or too flawed. Their nervous system lives on edge, bracing for the next correction, the next criticism, the next moment of being blamed and singled out. The invisible child becomes small, compliant. They learn that the safest way to survive is to need nothing, to say very little, basically to draw no attention to themselves. So they disappear. They might disappear into screens, phones and computers. They might even disappear into their schoolwork, even though, their schoolwork doesn't take near as long as their time of being disappeared into it. They might disappear into friends' houses or even into their own internal world. They become low maintenance, easy, independent beyond their years. But that invisibility has a cost. When you shrink yourself long enough, you forget how to take up space at all. Now let's look at where you are right now in this whole environment. Maybe you're asking the same questions that so many ask. Can I tolerate this marriage, this relationship? Should I stay? Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I'm making more out of this than really is what's there. Am I expecting too much? Maybe I just need to try a little harder. But when your children begin shifting in order to survive, maybe the questions need to change a little bit. It is no longer, can I tolerate this? But instead ask yourself, what is the cost of staying? And that question is terrifying when it comes to our kids. Because leaving feels like detonating a bomb. Yes, it feels like you will be the one disrupting your kids' stability. It feels like you're tearing the family apart. It feels like you will be blamed. It feels like you will shatter whatever fragile normalcy exists. So it feels like you should stay. Take a look at your situation. If you and your kids are living in the environment that I've been describing, then you need to know something. Your kid's stability is already disrupted. Your family is already torn apart. Just because you're still living inside the same house does not mean that you have normalcy in a healthy family unit. Yet, like so many, it is easy to just keep waiting. Waiting for what? For things to get better? For something dramatic to happen? A big enough fight or a big enough explosion? Maybe you're waiting for an affair, a visible bruise, public humiliation, something obvious enough that you can quiet your own doubt, that you no longer have to argue with yourself. But in the meantime, the quiet damage is already happening. We cling to breadcrumbs because intermittent reinforcement is powerful, because hope is attachment, because you remember who he or she can be on good days, because there are moments when they laugh with the kids, where they actually show up and have a sense of genuineness, where they soften. And you think maybe this is the version of them that will stay. And we think that over and over and over. Now, I want you to know hope is not stupidity. It's not. I never will blame somebody for being hopeful. Hope is staying committed to something you believe in, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hope is grasping to the love that you want your family to have within your household. Again, there's nothing wrong with this. But hope without sustained change or progress or accountability becomes erosion. Now, I want to say this gently. When children grow up in chronic emotional unpredictability, they often normalize this in adulthood. They don't leave dramatic relationships because they don't recognize the early signs. They become the golden child again, or they become scapegoats again, or they disappear into their, AirPods and they go to avoidance again. It feels normal to them. And maybe they even think this is what relationships look like. Staying.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
For your kids does not preserve their childhood or their family unit. It preserves a pattern. And maybe it's time you break this pattern for you and for them. Now, that does not mean that you need to make a decision today. It does not mean that you need to panic and go pack a go bag. It does not mean you blow everything up right now. But it does mean stop minimizing what you are seeing. It does mean you need to document, you need to journal so that you can see the patterns for yourself when you're not in a fight or flight moment. It means you quietly consult an attorney just so you understand your options, so that you can maybe take some of the scary out of the divorce process if that's on the table for you. It means you consider individual therapy for yourself and for each child so that they have a safe space to talk about their thoughts and their feelings so that they can express them safely, get some validation for how they're feeling, and get some tools for how to work through that. It also means you need to strengthen your own support system. Okay, you need to turn to online support groups like my Facebook groups, Covert Narcissism group. Or it means you turn to coaching. I do offer coaching. I have in-person retreats. I have all of this. It's on my website at covertnarcissism.com. But this is not a sales pitch. This is a plea to you to find the right support for you. And if it's not me and my services, that's fine. But find the right support that you need. Because when the kids start hurting, it changes everything. Don't minimize their pain. See it. Acknowledge it. Talk with them about it. Face it. They need you to. If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I see it. Now, what do I actually do? Well, let's talk about that. First off, you do not sit your kids down and give them a lecture about covert narcissism. No, that would be the wrong approach. You don't teach them words like gaslighting and passive aggressiveness, at least not to our little ones. Maybe if they're older teenagers or young adults, yes. You don't diagnose their parent. You don't unload adult details onto their shoulders. It is not their burden to carry. But what you do is create safe space for them. You create small, consistent, safe openings for them to talk. You don't force it, you just create the opportunities. So maybe instead of asking, "Are you okay?" which almost always gets a "I'm fine," you might try something like, "I've noticed you seem more tired lately. I just want you to know that if something feels heavy, I'm here for you." Or you might say, "I've noticed things feel tense in the house sometimes, and I'm sure you're feeling that. What is it like for you?" Create opportunities for your kids to open up with you, to feel safe with you. And sometimes the best way to do that is to do it through an activity, okay? Something that they enjoy doing, not setting the stage for some deep conversation and we're going to sit here and talk, just to spend time with them and let them feel your presence with them. Sometimes kids will open up the most when they're engaged in an activity where they don't feel pressured to talk. Something like throwing a ball around or throwing a frisbee, riding bikes in the neighborhood, playing with, stuffed animals or shooting pool if they're a little older. It's the things that we can do with them where it creates the opportunity. Maybe they talk and maybe they don't, but the safe space is there. You're not leading them. You're not, probing with questions. You're not planting ideas. You're just providing safety, providing an opportunity for them. Now, when you do provide these opportunities, you must regulate yourself while they talk. If they say something that triggers your anger or your grief, you need to be able to stay steady. So you have to work through your own healing. That is crucial before you can truly be an anchor for your kids. Your job in that moment when your kids open up to you is not to fix it. It's not to have big reactions. That does not help them. It's to make it safe for them to tell you the truth of how they feel or what they think. Even if you disagree with their words or even if their words are painful to hear, what you are giving them is the opportunity, the safe space for them to open up and talk and be able to say whatever they need to say. If they defend the other parent, you don't argue. You don't tell them that they're wrong. You don't try to correct their perspective. No. If they minimize things, you don't push. You can't force this. You can't force their eyes open. If they do open up, don't overwhelm them with validation to the point that this feels big and dramatic. Don't take this as an opportunity to dump all of your knowledge onto them. They have to do this at their own pace. You stay calm. You stay curious. You stay safe. Now, for younger children, I'm going to say keep it simple and concrete. You can tell them things like, "It's not your job to manage adults' feelings." You can say things like, "You're allowed to feel however you feel." You might even say, "If something feels scary or confusing, you can always tell me." And then let them tell you. You don't have to fix it. Help them find little tools of things they can do to feel better. Maybe they have a specific stuffed animal that they like. Maybe there's a certain song that they like to sing. Help them find tools to help themselves through their own feelings. Teach them emotional regulation. Don't try to correct their perspective. For teenagers, you can be slightly more direct. You might say something like, sometimes in families, people take on roles, oftentimes without realizing it. I just want you to know that you don't have to be perfect here. You don't have to fix anything. You get to be you. You are giving them language without forcing a narrative. And here's something else that matters a great deal. Give your kids permission to love both of their parents. Children should not have to choose sides in order to feel secure. Even if you are hurting, even if their parent is a covert narcissist, even if you are very clear about the dysfunction that's going on here, they are still allowed to have their own perspective, their own experience, their own attachment to this other parent. Now, depending on the specifics of your situation, It might be extremely helpful to your kids for you to voice something to them, such as, "You don't have to feel the same way that I do. Your relationship with your dad or your mom is your relationship." That sentence alone can remove so much internal pressure for them. And removing that pressure will give them the space to be able to open their eyes a little bit more, to be able to see clearly, which, by the way, will take time, but take the pressure off of them. Now, if you are seeing signs of depression, anxiety, aggression, withdrawal, and isolation, individual therapy can be incredibly stabilizing for our children. Not because your child is broken, but because sometimes kids need a neutral space to say what they don't want to say at home, and somebody who can help give them tools for working through their own thoughts and feelings. Now, one very important thing that you can do for your kids is to model regulation, emotional regulation. If you are the one steady nervous system in the house, that matters more than you know. You cannot control the entire environment. No, you can't stop this wave of narcissistic manipulation or these waves of it, but you can become a predictable presence, a safe presence inside that home. And that is powerful. It's powerful when you listen without panic and big reactions, when you can validate without escalating, when you can hold boundaries without exploding. You are teaching them what stability feels like. You've got to find it for yourself and then role model it to them. While you might not be able to model a healthy spousal relationship in front of them, you can absolutely model a healthy family relationship with them. Let your relationship with each child be about you and that child, and let that relationship be the model for what stability is, for what healthy relationship is. Let them feel what it's like to live within a safe relationship. Not perfect, not people pleasing or doing everything for them, but safe. And that's the relationship they have with you. A safe relationship where opinions and feelings matter for both people, where there's nothing to be fixed about somebody's perspective or opinion, where there's space for both people to exist and to count, to matter. So, no, you don't have to make every decision today. You don't have to solve your entire relationship issues tonight. But you can start by opening the door to honest conversation with your children. See them. Name what you're noticing very gently. Give them space to speak without you fixing it. Let them know they are not crazy for what they feel. Because when the kids start hurting, the first step is not necessarily leaving. The first step is listening. And that is something that you can begin today. Now, if you need help on this journey of trying to figure out how to help your kids, I 100% can help you with that. Check out my coaching services, reach out to me, come see me. I can help you find the tools to help your kids. It starts with you, and then it transfers to your children. I wish you and your kids so much peace on your journey of healing. If there were ever an audience that I wish did not have to exist, it would be this one, because of what it means you've lived through. I'm truly sorry that you understand this so deeply, and I'm really glad that you're here. May this be a place of safety, clarity, and peace. You are not alone anymore, and you don't have to figure this out by yourself. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you'd like to learn more about the support, resources, or coaching that is available for you, you can visit covertnarcissism.com. While I hate it for everyone who understands what I am talking about, I'm really glad that you're here, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.